Señores, si están buscando una noticia que podría destruir por completo la agenda legislativa de Trump, esto les va a interesar. Lo que acaba de decir el senador republicano Ron Paul al aire en vivo. No tiene precedentes. Escuchemos.
Spending. Somebody has to stand up and yell, the emperor has no clothes, and everybody's falling in lockstep on this. Pass the big, beautiful bill. Don't question anything. Well, conservatives do need to stand up and have their voice heard. This is a problem we've been facing for decades now, and if we don't stand up on it, I really fear the direction the country is going.
The senator, or excuse me, the speaker is...
Y es que amigos, eso fue un disparo directo a la propuesta legislativa más importante de Trump. Prácticamente está diciendo que el gran y hermoso proyecto de ley de Trump es una estafa. No solo eso, también dejó claro que está dispuesto en ir en contra. Ahora bien, ¿por qué esto es importante? Porque los republicanos solo pueden darse el lujo de perder 3 votos en el Senado. O sea que en el momento en el cual haya 4 deserciones, este proyecto de ley muere completamente. La matemática es sencilla. Los republicanos tienen una mayoría muy ajustada de 53 a 47. O sea, están utilizando el mecanismo de reconciliación presupuestaria para poder aprobar este proyecto, lo cual les permite evitar el filibuster. Pero bueno, aún así necesitan una mayoría simple, y si 4 republicanos votan en contra, amigos, esto se acabó. Con su declaración, Ron Paul se ha convertido oficialmente en la primera deserción. Lógicamente no es un mensaje muy sutil que digamos, fue una declaración directa de que él votará un no. Y no está solo. El senador Josh Hawley también ya se posicionó en contra de querer eliminar el acceso al Medicaid para 14 millones de estadounidenses. Algo, amigos, que según la propia Oficina del Presupuesto del Congreso, este proyecto de ley lo haría. Escuchemos.
Republicans are moving forward with their massive bill that includes trillions of dollars in tax cuts. To help pay for it, some cuts to Medicaid, the health insurance program for low-income and disabled Americans. But not all GOP lawmakers are fully on board. Republican Senator Josh Hawley, who represents Missouri, a state where roughly 1 in 5 people are on Medicaid, he wrote a New York Times op-ed this week with a very simple message. Don't cut Medicaid. Senator Hawley joins me live now from Capitol Hill. Senator Hawley, thank you so much for being with me this afternoon. So as we just showed you, you were warning your party not to cut Medicaid. The speaker, though, he just said this about the House GOP's so-called big, beautiful bill. Listen.
Will you cut Medicaid?
We're not cutting Medicaid. Stop buying that.
So he said, if you heard there, Senator Hawley said, we are not cutting Medicaid. Do you agree with the speaker? Is this bill not a cut to Medicaid?
Well, the right thing to do is not to cut Medicaid, so I'm glad to hear him say that. Manu, it ought to be just a basic foundational principle. It is wrong to cut health care for the working poor, and that's what we're talking about here with Medicaid. My state is a Medicaid expansion state. Over 20% of Missourians, including hundreds of thousands of children, are on Medicaid. And Manu, they're not on Medicaid because they want to be. They're on Medicaid because they cannot afford health insurance in the private market. These are working people and their children who need health care. And it's just wrong to go and cut their health care when they're trying to make ends meet, trying to help their kids, trying to make sure that they're able to provide for their families. So I hope that the House GOP and the Senate GOP will get the message here. By the way, President Trump has said the same thing. No Medicaid benefit cuts.
So, Senator Hawley, the expectation, though, is in this House GOP plan, millions could lose health insurance coverage. We're waiting for the exact numbers when the Congressional Budget Office analyzes this impact, but that is the expectation. It also, some of the changes could put some rural hospitals at risk. It also puts in place some new copay requirements for Medicaid beneficiaries. Does that concern you?
Yes, both of those things concern me. Number one, I don't want to see any more rural hospitals in Missouri or anywhere else in America go out of business. We've lost too many of them in the state of Missouri, Manu. I don't like the idea of decreasing funding for rural hospitals. I'm worried that the House bill goes way too far in that regard. I also don't like what is basically a hidden tax on working poor people who are trying to get health care. I mean, this whole idea of we're going to charge them now additional copays in order to access health care. I have to say that just sounds like a tax to me. So now we're taxing poor people when they're trying to get access to health care? I've got big concerns about that.
So if this bill comes over from the House to the Senate and you have to vote on it, are you no if this bill does not change?
I'm not going to support this bill from the House in this form. I think that's clear. It's got to change before it can pass the Senate. And I continue to stand by my line in the sand, which is no Medicaid benefit cuts. Listen, if you want to do work requirements, I'm all for that. I bet every Republican and I bet most Americans would agree with that. But we're not talking here about just work requirements. The House goes much, much, much further than that. This is real Medicaid benefit cuts. I can't support that. No Republican should support that. We're the party of the working class, Manu. We need to act like it.
Yeah, speaking of that, in your New York Times op-ed that we just showed, you wrote this about some of your GOP colleagues. You said, quote, "This wing of the party wants Republicans to build our big, beautiful bill around slashing health insurance for the working poor. Republicans need to open their eyes. Our voters support social insurance programs. More than that, our voters depend on these programs." You also point out that President Trump increased GOP support with the working class. So do you think your GOP colleagues in Congress are too focused on making life easier for corporate America and, frankly, wealthier Americans than the working class?
Well, I would just say it's a mistake to listen to outlets like the Wall Street Journal, for instance, that never met a corporate tax cut they didn't love, never met a corporate goodie that they didn't absolutely relish, but want to tax the working class like crazy. It's reverse class warfare is what it is. It's taxing the poor to give to the rich. And I'm totally opposed to that. Republicans now, thanks to Donald Trump, are the party of the working class, Mono. You referenced the returns from the last election. The big majority of working class voters voted for the GOP. That means now the GOP needs to deliver for them. And we do that by giving them tax relief. We do that by bringing down their health care bills. We don't do it by cutting Medicaid.
Pues en otras palabras, a menos que Josh Hawley finja que un proyecto de ley que elimina Medicaid para 14 millones de personas, en realidad no lo elimina, lo cual es perfectamente posible porque la desvergüenza de estos políticos no tiene límite, entonces también se cuenta como otra deserción. Bueno, luego vi de dos senadoras, mejor dicho, que deberían estar realmente preocupadas por este proyecto de ley. Y se trata, amigos, de Susan Collins de Maine y de Lisa Murkowski de Alaska. ¿Por qué? Porque ambas tienen pues gran parte de su población inscrita en Medicaid. Miren estos datos. Sin duda deben estar quitándole el sueño. En Alaska, más de 246,000 personas están en Medicaid. O sea, hablamos de un tercio de la población del estado. En Maine hay más de 320,000 personas que dependen de Medicaid. Hablamos de que representa casi la cuarta parte del estado. Ahora, quiero que piensen en esto políticamente. Susan Collins tendría que regresar a Maine y explicarle a 320,000 personas, sus votantes, por qué es que votó para quitarles el seguro médico. Por su parte, Lisa Murkowski tendría que mirar a la cara a 246,000 habitantes de Alaska y decirles que su cobertura de Medicaid se eliminó por financiar recortes de impuestos para los multimillonarios. Y amigos, esto no son números abstractos. Hablamos de familias trabajadoras. Hablamos de personas mayores en hogares de ancianos. Hablamos de niños con enfermedades crónicas. Personas con discapacidades. Solo en Alaska, más de 70,000 personas consiguieron seguro médico gracias a la expansión del Medicaid. O sea que si Susan Collins y Lisa Murkowski votan a favor de este proyecto, estarían literalmente quitándoles el seguro a enormes sectores de sus propios estados. Entonces, aquí entra una realidad política que los demócratas tienen que comprender. Collins y Murkowski ya han expresado preocupaciones en el pasado sobre recortes a programas sociales. Vienen de estados dependientes de programas federales. Además, son consideradas moderadas que cuidan su imagen pública. O sea que los demócratas en este momento tienen que comprender que es el tiempo de ejercer presión máxima. Tienen que llamar a Collins, tienen que llamar a Murkowski por su nombre, tienen que lanzar anuncios en televisión, en redes, en Maine, en Alaska, mostrando cuántas personas perderían su cobertura si este proyecto pasa. Tienen que hacer ruedas de prensa con beneficiarios del Medicaid en esos estados. Es el momento. La declaración por parte de Ron Paul les da esta cobertura política perfecta, ¿no? para votar en contra. O sea, ya no estarían solas. Pueden unirse a él, quien ya públicamente dijo que Trump está actuando como un emperador sin ropa. Bueno, y eso no es todo, porque con Paul y Hawley criticando el proyecto desde dos frentes distintos, tanto el fiscal como el social, hay excusas para todo. Porque uno argumenta que el proyecto es irresponsable y que traiciona los principios conservadores, y por otra parte, reconocen que perjudica a millones que dependen del Medicaid. Entonces, amigos, cualquier republicano que esté buscando una razón para votar un no, aquí la tiene. El simple hecho de que Ron Paul haya sentido la necesidad de hablar también nos podría indicar que tal vez otros senadores republicanos comparten estas preocupaciones en privado, pero lógicamente, como muchos, temen decirlo públicamente. Hay que ser sinceros, amigos, y esta es una dura realidad. Hay muchos en el Partido Republicano que no son exactamente los modelos de valentía y de integridad. O sea, están ahí para servir a su rey, y saben que si ellos se rebelan, estarían enfrentándose a primarias financiadas por Trump o por, Elon Musk. Tal vez Ron Paul le está dando la salida que ellos necesitan para no sentir que caminan solos por la tabla. Ya sea así o no, la estrategia demócrata es clara, amigos: hacer que esta votación sea sobre Josh Hawley, sobre Susan Collins, sobre Lisa Murkowski, forzarlos a explicar por qué están priorizando recortes de impuestos para multimillonarios sobre la salud de cientos de miles de personas en sus propios estados. Llamar a sus oficinas. El otro día escuché a Elizabeth Warren y dijo que cuando este proyecto aún estaba en la Cámara, lo más efectivo era inundar las líneas telefónicas de los congresistas. O sea que esta es la misma táctica que tienen que aplicar en el Senado. Collins, Murkowski, Hawley no son inmunes a la presión pública. Pues bueno, señores, pasemos al siguiente tema, y es que los demócratas han estado presionando para despojar a Trump de la autoridad sobre la agencia policial que protege a los jueces. Hay que hablar de esto porque honestamente, amigos, es algo muy peligroso y que está pasando, ¿no? Desapercibido, tanto en el ruido mediático. Donald Trump ha intensificado sus ataques contra el poder judicial en Estados Unidos, a tal punto que los expertos ya están hablando de una crisis constitucional. Y antes de que alguien salga a decirme otra vez política gringa, ojo, amigos, lo que está pasando es algo que puede enseñar muchísimo sobre cómo se debilita una democracia desde adentro. ¿Y por qué es que hay que estar atento? Pues bueno, escuchemos esta noticia.
New report that the tension between President Trump and judges has become a constitutional crisis, with one former federal judge describing it as all-out war. USA Today summarizes the actions that led to this, quote, arresting judges, threatening their impeachment, routinely slamming them on social media, and trying to go around them completely. The concerns escalating so much that Senator Cory Booker on Thursday introduced legislation to move control of the Marshal Service, which protects judges, from the executive branch to the judicial branch itself. There's concern that Trump could order the marshals to stand down in retaliation for a decision that doesn't go his way, exposing judges to danger at a time when threats against them have escalated. And the president's criticism has too, as rulings go against him. Most recently on Friday, when a federal judge ordered the administration to facilitate the return of a gay Guatemalan man who was deported to Mexico. Joining me now, retired FBI agent Rob D'Amico, former U.S. attorney in Michigan, University of Michigan Law School professor and MSNBC legal analyst Barbara McQuaid, and former Florida Republican Congressman Carlos Curbelo, an MSNBC political analyst. Happy Memorial Day to all of you. Barbara, the Trump administration has not indicated, I should say, to judges that it plans to remove or weaken Marshall's protection for current and former federal judges. But given the current state of tensions between the Trump administration and judges, what are you hearing? What are the conversations? What's the level of fear that's out there?
Yeah, I think that this is actually a really interesting and terrific idea. I think judges are very concerned. We see the number of threats up. We see things like social media posts intimidating and harassing them. We see them receiving pizzas delivered to their homes, which may sound harmless, but it really suggests an intimidation tactic of I know where you live. And because of this clash with the executive branch, I think that having the U.S. Marshal Service fall under the judicial branch actually makes a lot of sense, because then the marshals are taking their orders from the judiciary. Right now, they're taking their orders from the Justice Department. The other thing this would create is the ability for judges to truly hold people in contempt for their orders, because they would have their own law enforcement arm to effectuate those orders. Right now, if a judge were to hold someone in contempt, they would be beholden to the Justice Department to execute that order. So I think it's actually a really great idea.
One of the things we've seen, Rob, and this is outside of this particular question, but people who have been in a particular government service for a long time being asked to do something that is out of the norm, that they don't think is a great idea. And that's obviously the concern here, right? So how do you develop a security policy for, first of all, a group as large as judges are, under a fast escalating threat level as they are, and with this level of uncertainty?
I think this is actually going back to how society is taking it upon themselves to do threats on both sides. I mean, we saw things happening with Tesla because of what he was doing. Now the fear of this, I think, is a bit different. But I think you'd have to stand up an entirely different service, because the marshals have other codes that they're responsible for. So I think it could be some thought. I think the judges need it because, again, society in general is starting to get more violent and retaliatory.
So how complicated is this? I mean, it can sound simple, like, okay, well, justice used to take care of it. Now the judges themselves, the judicial branch will. But how complicated could a move like that be?
I think it'd be huge. But I think maybe if you take it, the Supreme Court has their own security. And if you take it from there and then decide to, you would have to move funds, but make it from the Supreme Court security and then put it on the federal judges. And then obviously state and locals would have to be on themselves. But I think you could form it under that, and it just be security for justices, for judges out there, and nothing else.
Congressman, Republicans seem to be piling on to support Trump in this fight with the judiciary. And I just wonder what their play is here. Is it about loyalty to Trump, or do they believe that the federal judiciary is overstepping?
Well, look, you can believe that the judiciary is overstepping while respecting the separation of powers. And on this question, this idea that Senator Booker has brought forward, Congress has its own police force, and Congress has its own operation to secure its members and to make sure that it can meet and that it can fulfill its constitutional duty. So for conservatives who have for a long time advocated for loyalty to the Constitution, the separation of powers, checks and balances, this is something that is consistent with that ideology, with that perspective on the United States government. So, yeah, I mean, we know that Republicans are extremely loyal to Donald Trump, that a lot of them fear primary challenges from the Trump wing of the Republican Party. But this is a good opportunity to reaffirm those separation of powers, those conservative principles that Republicans have adhered to for a very long time.
And Barbara, Trump is not alone in his criticism of judges who have blocked his policies. There is now another bill. It's a Republican bill aimed at stopping federal judges, district judges, from issuing nationwide injunctions. And the Attorney General has not been shy in her criticism either. Take a listen.
Madam What's happened to our judiciary is beyond me. They're deranged is all I can think of. I cannot believe. I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law.
Calling them deranged. How much has what judges have heard from Trump, from Bondi, from Republican congressional leaders exacerbated this security concern?
Well, it's hard to know what's cause and what's effect, but certainly the rhetoric doesn't help, and we've seen a spike in threats against judges. It's got to be part of it. But I think one of the things the Trump administration is trying to do is to conflate substance with process. They say we have a mandate to be aggressive in enforcing immigration laws. Maybe that's true, but they still have to do it in compliance with the law. And so these criticisms about judges are really for upholding procedural protections that are constitutionally guaranteed, like the right to due process. And so when they engage in this kind of rhetoric, they're certainly free to criticize a judge. But when they go so far as to call them deranged or to call for their impeachment, I think that rhetoric does cause people out there, somebody who may be a bit unhinged, to hear that and decide they're going to take action in response.
Lo escucharon bien, ¿no? Arrestar jueces, amenazarlos con un impeachment, atacarlos en redes sociales. Lo más grave aquí no es solo lo que dice Trump, sino por qué lo dice y en qué contexto. Cada vez que un juez emite una decisión que no le favorece, él reacciona con ataques personales, acusaciones de corrupción o hasta insultos directos. No se trata de una pataleta de ego, es una estrategia porque Trump sabe perfectamente que su base confía más en él que en las instituciones. Entonces, cuando un juez frena una de sus políticas, él no argumenta con leyes o razones. Él lo que hace es desacreditar a este juez, sembrando la idea de que hay una conspiración contra él. Y eso es muy peligroso. Cuando una figura con tanto poder, con tantos seguidores, empieza a decir que los jueces son enemigos del pueblo, lo que está haciendo es minar la confianza en el sistema judicial. Y sin una justicia independiente, ¿qué nos queda? Un líder que pueda hacer lo que quiera, sin tener consecuencias. Miren, puede haber quien diga, bueno, algunos jueces sí se pasan de la raya, ¿no? Que sí politizan sus decisiones. Y en parte no les falta la razón. Hay debates legítimos sobre cómo algunos jueces han emitido fallos muy cuestionables, no solo en esta administración. Pero eso de justificar que un presidente quiera controlar, quiera intimidar el poder judicial, yo creo que aquí ya hay un abismo. La solución nunca puede ser dinamitar la independencia judicial. O sea, si tú crees que un juez actúa mal, hay canales legales, hay recursos, hay apelaciones. Lo que no se puede aceptar es esta lógica, ¿no? De que si tú no me das la razón, estás en contra de mí y te destruyo públicamente. Lo que está haciendo Trump no solo es polémico, es algo muy peligroso. Porque cuando se ataca a los jueces, solo por hacer su trabajo, lo que se debilita no es un grupo de personas con toga. Es uno de los pilares de la democracia, la justicia. Aquí no importa si tú eres de derecha o eres de izquierda. Nadie debería de aplaudir que un político quiera desmantelar los contrapesos del poder. Pero bueno, ¿qué opinan ustedes? ¿Creen que Trump está cruzando una línea que no debería? ¿Les preocupa el rumbo que se está tomando con las instituciones en Estados Unidos? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, dale like, compártelo con tus amigos y suscríbete a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.